Madhukar sir, you want to start?
Hi, am I audible, Vijay?
Yes, very much audible, sir. Oh,
I think we can wait for 1 or 2 more minutes because 11 was the time given, and let's start at exacted 11:02.
sure, sir. Okay.
Very good morning to all. On behalf of Amity Innovation Incubator, Amity University Gurugram, I extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Amit Bakor, and all participants to this session on managing product design agility. Amity Innovation Incubator Gurgaon is located in the Amity University Gurgaon campus, which is in the close proximity of one of the largest industrial hub of country, providing an ideal platform and a vibrant ecosystem for early stage entrepreneurs and startups. Amity Innovation Incubator Gurugram is supported by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology under Mighty Tide 2.0 scheme, in which incubation center has provided funding support to 3 ideas which are in process of proto development, and we are hoping that very soon we are going to take this project to the next stage of commercialization. Basically, I would like to mention the 3 projects. The one is on antimicrobial face mask using nanoparticle coating. We have already filed patent for this particular project. The another project is 3D manufacturing of N95 mask and nanocomposite material having inherent antimicrobial property. We have also filed patent for this particular project also. The third project is quite a different project, and it is AI based project, which is specifically developing a software for artificial intelligence based audio visual platform used for diagnostic of symptom of a patient. So with the great vision of our Honorable Founder President Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan and our Honorable Chancellor Dr. Asim Chauhan, the Incubation Center at Amity is truly committed to build an environment and ecosystem of research, innovation, and entrepreneurship by providing support in establishment and growth of technology-based startups. In the last few years of its establishment, the incubator the incubator has incubated more than 20 startups in the area of e-commerce, edtech, virtual conferencing, digital marketing, transport, and supply chain, to name a few. Today webinar topic on managing product with agility, which is a focus on providing valuable business outcome, increased flexibility to respond to change, and a greater transparency for investment decision in product development. The key agenda of today's seminar is basically on user engagement level, business context for product design, synchronize across frequency, a change take time to settle in, know your user journey, and many more. I think our esteemed speaker, Amit, will take you to this whole journey of the topic. Before I invite our speaker of the day, let me introduce him to the participant. Mr. Amit is a product management and a design leader with 20 plus experience based in Pune, and currently he works as a director at Prime Synergip and builds solution domain like productivity, health tech, retail, consumer tech, auctioning, ad tech, and marketplace, etc. He has handled product lifecycle for startups to Fortune 100 companies with agile delivery for partners across US, Europe, Israel, Russia, and China. Over last 10 years, he has been mainly offering product management and UX services for B2B, B2C, where success story include quick office exit with Google, Prezi securing funding, cloud on exit with Dropbox, and many other. Amit established product management and user experience practices at Synergip, including a UX studio serving 40 plus clients. Amit has various certification in his credit and also co-authored 2 books. Once again, on behalf of Amity Innovation Incubation Center, I welcome Mr. Amit. Over to you, Mr. Amit. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikas. I hope I'm audible to everyone. My only request would be just put your side on mute. We'll be glad to take all the questions during the course of entire interaction. Feel free to interrupt. Raise your hand. We'll be glad to answer any of your queries. So first and foremost, thanks a lot to Amity Incubation Center for hosting and having this discussion. But above all, especially you can say warm extent of gratitude to Dr. Vikas as well as Vijay Veer Singh for organizing this. So without wasting any time, I'll just jump to the core aspect of the topic what we have picked up. It's actually a very vast topic. There are multiple ways in which we can really manage it. But today we'll just focus on these 9 pieces which I felt were relevant for the discussion. So in short, many of you might be coming from different backgrounds. Some of you would be actual startup professionals. Some of you could be coming from enterprise background. Some of you could be maybe you can say postgraduate management students, and so on and so forth. But what is common across this spectrum is at every stage of your product, there will be always, if there is a product, there is experience. And what we probably always need to think for is how, as an end user, whatever the end user is really experiencing, that product experience, how we are really managing it. And every experience needs design. So for your product design, as your product evolves, how you are going to manage the agility of the product and the overall agility of your design, I think it is the key question. So with close to last 10 years of my stint with both product management and user experience, some of these 9 things which I felt were relevant, which are lessons learned on the way. Obviously there are a lot more, but I felt it's relevant to share these 9, and probably whatever I can probably bring the side to the table for more constructive discussion which we can bring. So with these, let's deep dive into the first one, which is obviously, as you have product, you have got experience, and obviously to have that experience, there is a user who is consuming that experience. And obviously, in order to have the excellent user engagement, you first need to really understand that where exactly this whole thing fits in. So at every stage of your product, whether this is literally maybe a 3-month-old startup, or maybe it's a 3-decade-old enterprise class software solution, or maybe a well-established SaaS company, I think things keep evolving. There are market trends which are out there. User needs are evolving. Above all, technology is rapidly changing. The way I think we are offering the engagement, the USPs, they also keep evolving. Obviously, product features get added and so on and so forth. But you fundamentally, if you really boil down to the whole thing, what you'll realize is there are 3 primary levels. So on the rightmost, what you are seeing is the relationship level. So this is somewhere, your actual organization or the product comes in. And on the left side, there is your end user, which is really consuming and interacting with your or bridging with your organization. So most of the time, what we generally are in hurry to really focus or lock in ourselves is only at the interaction level, which is closer to the end user. But obviously there is a level in between, which is journey level, and obviously there is a high level, this relationship level. So let's quickly understand that what exactly these elements are, so that when we say that yes, we are talking about product design and we have to manage the agility of the product design, what exactly the pieces which are involved. So the first and foremost aspect is that we mostly are aware of the visual design, which we typically call it as UX, or so-called, generally say, okay, it's a design. But the fact is that there are lots of other elements which are equally important, including a very good, robust information architecture, which really is kind of acts as a skeleton for your visual design. There is equally, important content strategy for your product, your digital marketing, the way your user really navigates through the offering. And obviously there are lots of other pieces, including the psyche of the user, the onboarding. So for example, smaller things are there. For example, your user who is signing up on day 1, he's not the same person or the same persona on day 100, because from day 1 to day 100, the user has evolved from a new user to a power user. So is your product really still offering the same experience for the end user? Then if that's the case, then fundamentally you need to revisit. So you have to design in such a way so that your day 1 user as well as your day 100 user, I think they probably need to be well taken care, as well as you fundamentally need to understand the product life cycle. I'll give you a very small example. So when Uber got launched a few years back, and you used to use the mobile application of Uber and you used to launch it, the application used to ask you, okay, where currently you are, where you would like to go. Then the next screen used to ask, okay, what kind of vehicle you need, and so on and so forth. And then, it used to basically arrange the vehicle for you. Today, if you really launch the Uber app, the first thing what you get actually land up at is the map, and your live location is shown as a pin, and the vehicles which are around you, they are shown visually on the map. So what is happening is they are instantly making you productive. So the point I'm bringing up over here is, when you fundamentally are talking about the user engagement levels, you have to manage at every level. You have to really understand that what is the stage of the life cycle of your product, and you have to optimize things accordingly. So quickly move to the journey part. So interaction is equally important. There is no doubt about that. But at the same time, the journey is equally important. For example, if we are really talking about the entire experience across different channels, okay, for example, let's take an example of Airtel as a service provider. Airtel is a company, I am a consumer. But when I'm actually interacting with Airtel, the same experience can have multiple touch points. So that omni-channel experience which the company is offering, I fundamentally need to really understand the entire spectrum of things. For example, I might call them up to request maybe a broadband connection. I'm already their postpaid mobile consumer, and I need a broadband installation at my home. But probably I don't get a comfortable answer, or limited details I get on the phone. So what I generally go for next is, okay, I launch my mobile app, try to figure out the you can say the availability of the service, whether I can request it, whether that's available in my area or not. But then I basically go to the web and figure out, okay, what are the typical rental plans for the broadband. Now you take this simple case into account. The touch points which were involved was phone, then mobile app, then the web, and then I ultimately realized that there is something called as maybe one Airtel plan which I can probably go for, which will generate just one single bill. So I just walk over to my nearest outlet of Airtel and basically just request them that, okay, get me a broadband connection under my existing account. Now the point I'm bringing up over here, the overall seamlessness across these particular channels and the way it is offering me services, I think that's exactly also the another very critical integration or consideration point for the journey. So your user's journey is not broken. So me as Amit Bakore is not different when I walk over to the actual physical retail outlet. I'm not different for them when I'm calling them. I'm not different when I'm navigating from my mobile app. They are aware that who is the user. They are aware of the context. They are aware, okay, what is my existing billing plan? They are aware that I have requested a broadband. They are aware that, okay, fair enough, this person is eligible for the one Airtel offering, and so on and so forth. Let's see. So fundamentally, what we are trying over here is, you need to understand that where your product sits, where your user sits and where your organization is really offering the key services. And this applicable, is across channels. You have to ensure that there is a seamlessness when I switch channels. You also need to understand that whatever data, which is being used to really back up the interaction, you are fundamentally very clear about all these aspects of it. Again, this can be logically extended to any other example. For example, if we look at the Corona times, and if you look at maybe even a US-based outlet, let's say Target. So what they do, if you order the grocery from your mobile app, they allow you to basically have a physical pickup. So in that case, what they have done is they have actually installed a big, you can say kind of a signage in their parking area. So what they do, they request you that when you actually will reach the parking area, you have to just go to your mobile app, put up your order number and give a buzz. So the person who is at the outlet of the Target store, what he will do is he will basically just pick up the appropriate packet where all the material what he have actually asked for is well packed. He basically get it out at the signage. You get your vehicle over there, you open the boot, put the stuff over there, and without any human, you can say close interaction, you basically grab your goods and you are back home. Okay, so this could be logically applicable for lots of different areas where the omni-channel experience and the maturity of all channels is extremely critical. And by the way, if you're thinking that this is not applicable really for my startup, you're fundamentally like overlooking this. So this is very, very you can say basic to your very existence of the organization with your end user. For example, whatever your startup is really doing, if at the end of the day your end user is frustrated, you should provide a mobile phone number where the person can reach out. Unless you hear out your end consumer, their frustrations, their delightment, you won't be able to really understand. Unless you hear out even chaos, the frustrations, the delight, you won't be able to know that how your actual product is resonating with your end user. So this journey is extremely important. Always remember one thing: when someone installs your application, beyond literally 3 days, if the application is still kept by the user on the phone, it means you have won the war. Okay, you have crossed that chasm with respect to the mind share. Otherwise, it is very hard to really retain. Most of the new apps which people try out, they install within literally less than 3 hours or so, where they basically delete it at max within 1 day, delete it. And the worst part, I'll tell you, there are about just 16 icons which you can hold on your phone. Even if you consider folders also, I think there are maybe certain still limitations to that, but that is still in the tune of 40 to 45. But if you end up into getting a place on the second home screen of your end user, it means you are not having that kind of priority from the user's point of view. So your job and your target should be to get a place on the home screen, and that too not in a folder but actually on as an icon. And the last part is a relationship. So what we are all doing over here is when define the experience, it's not just the design or the way we have a very immersive look and feel, very glossy feel and everything. Fundamentally, you are really actually making the person to buy your brand. Okay, so when you walk over to Bata, what you really expect is, okay, whatever I'll be buying, that would be sturdy, durable, it will long last, it would be comfortable. When you do the same thing when you walk over to any other brand, there is an expectation around it. Okay, you can take anything, whether that's Tesla, whether that's Apple, whether that's anyone like Rolex. There is a certain amount of expectation around the brand. So that doesn't happen overnight. You have to equally offer and think about the customer service. You have to fundamentally understand what value you are really trying to establish in the market, the brand equity. See, the tragedy, I'll tell you, in India, most of the time the consumer is not the king. Okay, that's the reality. But the point is that if you try to change that, I think you can still have that niche positioning, which you can always invest. You can build up your brand equity. And then you don't need to then burn dollars against the ad campaigns or reach out to people. Even word of mouth publicity is good enough. So that, I think, covers the first portion, which I felt is very instrumental. That when we talk about the users, the user engagement, these are the all different levels which you need to understand. So that's very, very instrumental for the success, for managing your product design and its agility. If you have any questions, I'll be able to take them towards end also. So don't worry about that. I'll be glad to come back to this slide once again if there is a relevant question for this area.
Mr. Amit, we can take question at the end, right? Yeah,
sure, absolutely. Thank you. The second important piece is as I just a few minutes back mentioned, that when we talk about the design or in general the overall interaction, I think the ground rules for considering that for B2B and B2C are slightly different, and this is something little important to understand the business context. So what I mean by that is, for every B2B offering or any B2C offering, and by the way, whenever I'm referring to B2B, it could be a very much a B2B startup as well. Okay, so not necessarily it should be a conglomerate or maybe like a $1 billion unicorn. What fundamentally is involved is the way the DNA for the B2B and B2C company basically is laid out. That DNA is different. Okay, and I'll just quickly touch base with few points, not all of them, but just few points. And these are, they will tie back to your product experience or the overall journey. So the first and foremost thing, what you have to understand is the user base with which we generally interact for the B2B case is generally in the tens or hundreds of it. Okay, but the beauty is that the ARPU, which is average revenue per user, is actually very high. So for example, if you tie up maybe with a B2B partner, you win a client, generally the ticket size is really high. So the revenue is significantly impacted by even the single digit client wins also. On the other hand, the B2C journey is generally very different. You take example of Swiggy or Zomato or any other likes. That's typically into the thousands to millions. But then the actual ARPU is low. And this is applicable for many such footprints. You take example of Jio, same thing. That they have got like significant user base, maybe 400 million. But the point is that the actual average revenue per user is actually low. So why this is important is because when you are designing, you have to be very, very careful that your one mistake can probably cost you significantly high on the case of B2B. Okay. But on the other side of B2C, it is probably little pardonable that if you probably make mistakes, because over thousands or millions, probably even a larger percentage also doesn't going to impact much on your top line with respect to the low ARPU. But that doesn't mean that you should be probably taking the product experience on ride. But I think this gives you, some kind of line of sensitivity or the control of the sensitivity to really make changes. The other important challenge, which we generally also all face is we have very limited control when it really comes to the distribution channel, when it comes to the B2C. So the moment your app goes live on App Store or Play Store, or you bundle it with any partner, or you ship it with your device, so on and so forth. I mean, the OEMs I'm saying, what happens is it is in the open market. So for example, if people don't like certain things, they are going to criticize. They are going to rate you 1 star. Even if they don't like your logo, they are going to hammer you out. So the beauty is that the uninstallations, the criticism is, like a public forum. So you have to be very careful when you're really sending out something at this level. But that doesn't mean that you should really take everything to your head. You also need to have that, you can say, a beautiful art of filtering out that, okay, everything what people are saying, that is just, a certain percentage of the entire population or your user base, not necessarily, the spike either upwards or downwards is the persistent thing. So never bother about that. But on the other hand, for the B2B, you have to be very careful when you are working with OEM partners or the distributors or the cloud, and really understand that if you're offering through these channels, I think again, being the total user base is relatively small, I think you have to be very careful how these things are going out. For example, one of your mistakes can basically will be very hard to fix. It's not, just like, okay, fixing it and then rolling up a dot version on an App Store or a Play Store. So this is extremely important, that the control on the B2B side is fairly low. You also need to be very respectful that the buyer persona who is really writing the check for B2B is a CXO and a SVP. And the tragedy is that these are not the users in most of the cases of your product. They are just buyer. On the other hand, for B2C, it's your consumer itself who is buying and is also the end user. So that is, making the job very easy, because then the eyes, hearts, ear, whatever they say, I think it resonates with both the consumer and the user in the same way, because it's the same persona. Okay, here it is different thing. Last few things. So you'll also realize the customer support, the way you need to offer for B2B is like fairly different model on this. This also affects your product experience. This also affects the comfort of your end users. In case of B2C, it's fairly easy. They can call you, they can, scream on the chatbot that, okay, this is not working, I need help. Or there could be, probably there is, lesser worry what you have to do. For example, you might say, oh, you know what, now iOS 10 is old. So I promise that, okay, my app will probably support for iOS 10 for next 3 years, but now, I'm moving on. So now it's going to be minimum iOS 11 you need, or things like that. Obviously, tons of other things are there, but when it comes to the user research part, you will notice that you can quickly, get samples of your end users, interview them. You can quickly, deploy tools like Hotjar and really understand that what is the user behavior. You can analyze the funnel, you can look at the heat maps, you can understand the trends, you can understand, okay, what is the click-through rate. You can also take a quick look at the experimentation through A/B and so on and so forth. You can also, ensure that when it really comes to the same aspect of research on the B2B side, it's not easy. You have to recruit your end users, seek the advisory board, invite them. You have to probably go to their place, do a little bit of ethnographic study. You can probably run surveys because sometimes, getting time with these people is very hard, and so on and so forth. But at the end, you'll realize that the world on B2C is actually good on one side when it really comes to the market research. For example, that, okay, what are the other apps which are being used by your user, which are installed on their phone through, utility like App Annie. You can really, hear out the reviews. You can quickly look at the rating. So what you're really going out with the market with a certain theme, whether that's working or whether that's not working. On the other hand, researching the market for B2B is fairly tough. Sometimes you have to really deep dive not into the different consulting firm reports like Gartner or Forrester and IDG and likes of that. But, figuring it out, the trends are very tough. For example, if you're analyzing the maybe Q1 to Q4, maybe sales for a certain vertical, it is, going to be the data for 2020. It's very hard to, then you can say project or anticipate or forecast for 2021 because of, multiple other factors. Also, researching for your competitor is very tough. Sometimes, people need to go as extreme as corporate espionage for getting the data points. Obviously, as I already mentioned about competitive research, it's not just the consulting firm, analyst reports, and generally supply chain. But I think you'll realize that you can probably install quickly the app or try out the service on the B2C side. You can buy a subscription for any service. You can purchase an app. You can reverse engineer. You can really play with it. You can interview the users of that app and get some insights. But all said and done, I think the key point for the aspects for the business is generally you won't get that liberty when it really comes to the roadmap to change it too quickly for B2B side. Okay, it is typically about 3 to 6 quarters. Okay, the scale is very critical over here. The solution needs to be well tested. On the other hand, typically what you will notice, the visibility for the roadmap is 2 to 6 months. The volume is fairly also you need to take into account in terms of what you are shipping. And again, the brand also, you can keep evolving your brand more rapidly as compared to the B2B world. If you look at the general typical UX cycles of what you really release, they are generally up to a calendar year in case of B2B. But on the other hand, with B2C, I think they are fairly light. Typically 3 to 6 weeks are the case. You can quickly do personalization. The fast change is the liberty on B2C side. But on B2B, I think that there is a hard aspect because there's a learning curve involved. So your end users, they are reluctant to the change typically on the B2B side. Many a times the persona is typically not the millennial or generation Z population, but which is the case mostly on the B2C side. And obviously the primary interface is still web on the B2B versus mobile on the B2C. But again, in mobile, things are rapidly changing. Tablets are dead. It's mostly phablets. Also operating systems are now just converged to iOS and Android. But what is really happening is that the way world really works on the mobile, it offers you amazing amount of context. Okay, there are tons of sensors from which you can really make the things amazingly engaging and useful. I'll probably maybe pull up a slide to show you that how powerful that is, maybe towards end of the session, just remind me. And obviously key metrics and data privacy, they are critical, especially when you probably look at the data leaks. I think the compliance and the overall data security is critical. But ultimately in B2C, that can quickly damage your reputations. Okay, so if a certain brand is compromised on the security side, there is a data leak, obviously you're then probably going to have a very tough time with respect to maintaining the brand equity in general. So I think that covers the second part of it. So I hope that was like helpful. Don't hesitate to just jot down your questions and ask towards the end. I'll be glad to revisit, as I earlier mentioned. The other part which is very important is synchronizing across frequencies. And when I say that, this is very interesting actually. Okay, so a lot of times you will realize that when you are doing something, planning something for your design and otherwise, you will realize that the market is having its own flavor of the month, flavor of the quarter, and ongoing buzzwords, hype, and so on and so forth. Same goes with the technology part. Lots of things are rapidly evolving, but the problem is that it is not always easy to latch to these things. Okay, and then basically map it internally with your org level, your design trend level, as well as your team skills level. So you will probably find that, okay, sometimes there is something which is hot in the market and you don't have right people with you, or when something is really evolving on the technology side, but probably you are not really finding that it is mapping with the right priority within your organization. So the beauty is that what this picture really reflects is the reality of life. Okay, so reality of life is that we are seeing a beautiful dress in a showcase, and you are running short on your the funds for that month, and the next month you basically get funds, and the dress is sold out. So that's how the business world work also. So what I probably would like to emphasize through this picture is that, see, you as the either owner or the head of the design or the head of the product management, you're always going to have a beauty and the challenge at hand, that the market demand is always going to be fluctuating on certain trends or the hype. Obviously you are aware that, okay, there is a Gartner hype curve as well. But let's take example of, let's say, digital transformation which is going on. Maybe a few years back it was service oriented architecture, or last year it was blockchain or whatever. What you will realize, or maybe AI enabled interfaces or voice interfaces and whatever. Okay, so what you will realize is the market demands, they will be always at their own frequency running, but that frequency is generally low. Okay, it takes around somewhere 3 to 6 quarters to really set up or bubble up certain trend. On the other hand, the technology evolution, like let's say progressive web apps or UI components or anything else, that is kind of a derivative or loosely linked with the market demand, but the frequency is slightly higher. It is typically in the tune of about, I would say, 2 to 4 quarters generally for the technology evolution. So what you have to ensure as a leader is, when it comes to the organization priority, it could be anything. Today you get a new CEO, he has got a revenue priority. Maybe tomorrow you get some you can say input from the board with respect to maybe a merger or some integration, then there is a different priority. So, or maybe tomorrow if some of your top client is screaming about something, then that becomes a priority. So you have to really understand that what is my organization priority, which is linked with business, and then that actually overrides the technology as well as market priority. If the things are fairly cool, stable, then your CEO or the chief design officer or the head of product management will give eyes and ears if you go to them with a proposal that, look, I would like to upgrade to Angular 9, or I probably would like to go with a design language and set of UI reusable components which I'll basically use, or let me adopt maybe the Google's flat design philosophy and adopt material UI all across the interface. So what you're going to face is there will be always something. For example, Objective is getting replaced with, let's say, Swift. But the point is that you have to create that synchronization where any initiative what you're going to start, I think the organization priority should be in sync with the tech and market. But always, remember, the check is going to be ultimately signed by the organization's head. I mean, whatever business unit you are working for. And then you have to map one thing, that whatever is ongoing trend in the design part or the technical skills on your team side, you have to ensure that right people are at your disposal. So for example, you might have a great guy here, but something is still not approved at this end. You might lose that guy down the line sometime, just because he's screaming, there is no great work happening here. I'm basically moving on. So you have to ensure that you have to retain the top talent. You have to sell these ideas which are happening on technology side, design side, and then you have to take a shot which this white line shows that more or less, okay, something if you start, then there is a window within which you can basically finish it. Always remember, if this window is more than 2 quarters, I think by the time you are done, I think the trend is obsolete in the market, or probably the technology has further evolved, or it's no more the priority of your organization. So you're not going to get claps or the extra dollars for all the hard work what you're doing between these two particular lines, which is the window of the implementation. So this is very important. So frequency is very critical. Quickly, let's move to the last few parts, as we have about 35 minutes into the session now. Always remember one thing, and this is really amazing, that a lot of times we think we are matured, we think that our leaders are matured, we think our board is matured, but the tragedy, I'll tell you, people have extreme impatience. It's like a kid which is waiting next to the counter of the ice cream delivery, where the guy is taking the scoop, putting it on the cone and just handing it off to the kid. So the anxiety, the impatience, and the curiosity in the eyes of the kid, I think we still all have the same thing. We are not admitting it, but that's the reality of the day. So what we expect, okay, I have created a new design, I'm rolling it out, and right away, the moment I'll be just rolling it out, people will clap, cheer, my rating will be 5-star, and so on and so forth. Or if it is a B2B kind of solution, my customers will call and will they say, everybody is so happy, you did an amazing job, that it's like next to the moon landing. But the world is not like that. Okay, here's the reality of the day. So the reality of the day is that always remember, in one shot, okay, in the one shot, you are never going to hit the perfect line or the perfect landing point. What it is ultimately going to happen is, if the x-axis indicates your design changes and y is the timeline, which is typically the case, you are going to expect that bouncing effect. Just like, maybe the vehicle lands on Mars or moon, where they basically have certain couple of bumps, and then it basically gets settled down. So in the same way, all the changes for your design which you are going to make, let's say there's a massive redesign which you basically come up with, which takes 6 or 8 months, and then you basically launch it to the market. The natural expectation is that, oh, here is our new UI 2.0, and clap clap clap, celebration party, and people are literally gaga over the entire rollout. So that is never going to happen. Obviously, you are going to get that wow, but in terms of the settling line, you might still maybe need another couple of fine tweakings or tunings on that core design, which will basically get you to the line of perfection or the expectations. And the worst part, this doesn't stop when you really do that, and this basically settles down maybe over the next 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever. It doesn't stop there. The time it basically settles in, I think there are newer inputs which are coming from the market, newer expectations from the end users, newer expectations from the product management, newer design trends, new rollouts from the competition. Take a simple example. So Zomato and Swiggy were out there, but the beauty was that Swiggy was the first company which actually deployed the real-time tracking of your food delivery to your home. And that actually, was an amazing game-changing feature. But today, if you look at it, Zomato did it, followed with a Me Too. Now, in this case, the Me Toos actually don't have the value. Okay, people, they say, yeah, I mean, isme kya hai? So obviously, the other partner is or your competition is offering. So these triggers, the external triggers will always try to come in. And then, there will be another, you can say, big impulse, which will be originated here, because you have to then again work on that, and the whole cycle will continue. So this is the reality of the life. This is unending. Okay, but be pragmatic enough to really understand that one such a massive drop is never going to settle down. It's like a ball which is going to bounce, and the decay will happen, and then it will settle on the floor. Okay, last few things. So that we all love beautiful cars, or we all love beautiful mobile phones, but the interesting thing is that every beautiful piece really needs equally powerful machinery, or the core engine which is beneath the surface. So what we fundamentally all need to understand is at the end of the day, when we are really looking at the experience part of it, here is the new world in which we are living. Okay, so there are 3 types of interfaces. One is the visual interfaces, which we typically has been knowing over last 3 decades. There are conversational interfaces like Alexa or the recent audio chatbots. There are text, you can say, interfaces, which are conversational interfaces like chatbots, which are powered by AI and so on and so forth. So the interfaces, whether they are running in browsers or they are native on mobile, in general, these interfaces, they are into three categories: visual, conversational, and transactional. And if you look at the stack today, it is typically your server is running as a container in a cloud. It is actually having its implicit AI piece, which is intelligent. We have got set of microservices and the analytics engine is running, and this whole machinery is getting deployed through DevOps. So if you, let's say, look at, imagine this is component A, which is being powered by the microservice A. What is really happening is the component A, as it is being offered, the usage or the interaction by the end user with your component is going to get analyzed by the analytics data with respect to the usage or the A/B testing and so on and so forth. So it will basically, give a trigger that, yeah, you know what, this component A is not working. So let's replace it with component B with the microservice B. The DevOps engine will deploy that. And what ultimately we are going to get is the whole deployment getting executed and the new data is getting captured. And obviously your pieces for this transactional interfaces, the conversational interfaces, they are powered by the relevant pieces of AI or whatever, next generation of technologies which are out there. So when you are designing, please remember one thing: you are living in a new world where this is normal. You are living in a world where all these microservices, cloud containers, AI enabled interfaces or analytics or other stuff is something, which is ubiquitous. Okay. So gone are the days, you really need hours to really deploy certain stuff or basically maintain or manage or get insights. I think this is literally off the shelf. These services are now offered by all the clouds, whether that's AWS, Azure, or Google or whatever. And what you're really now living is in the interface world, which are reusable UI components. There are lots of widgets which are out there, which basically simply consume the information, quickly evolve, and so on and so forth. So if you don't have this such a robust backend, I think you can't have an elegant user experience. Always remember this. Okay, so that's where the beauty lies. And we'll wrap it up with one portion, which is your user. Okay, so unless you really deeply understand and correlate how your user's journey is, it is impossible for you to really offer a good, optimal, and engaging experience for your user. So I highly recommend all of you to basically jot down your customer or user journey map. If you don't have one, please create. How to create that? It's very easy. You can see this, you can say template. If you just Google it, you will probably get this. So it's not really rocket science, but there is a very interesting aspect involved here. So that interesting aspect is that what to read and what to really get out of the customer journey map. Okay. So there is a very simple aspect to it where, you should focus. Number one, please involve all the parties involved into your product's life cycle: your sales team, your user experience team, your product management team, your engineering team, your marketing team. And then you all should sit into a room to first whiteboard the customer journey map before you go to this digital version. Okay, first whiteboard it, keep it evolving. Okay, the second and most important thing is that what you have to really capture is the different stages from knowing the brand of your service to where, the customer basically consuming your service and continue to use your service or basically leaving your service. So, okay, so these are the different stages of it. And on the left side, what you will notice is what are the activities which are typically performed for a certain goal by your customer or your user. And to do these, what are the different touch points they use, whether that's mobile, phone, tablet, web, or call, or social media, or whatever. And as they do this, what is in general their existing experience? Are they delighted? Are they unhappy? They are just okay. Just so try to plot that. So what will happen is you'll ultimately see that as the user is really interacting and performing this entire thing, there are certain business goals which you are getting, like you from the company point of view, your organization point of view, getting fulfilled. And that exactly, is in my opinion, is something, which is fundamentally very important to really understand that when you jot down your customer journey, then only, there are discoveries. There are discoveries about their pain points. There are discoveries that what opportunity you are missing. There are discoveries how frequently they are changing the touch points. Your analytics data will tell that. your user behavior analysis reports, heat maps, funnels, they will shout out loudly that yes, here the user is feeling lost. They are not able to see the button which is right in front of them. They are coming to this, but they are not clicking on the button, and so on and so forth. So those CTAs are not getting executed, call to actions. And point is that if you have really a well jotted user journey map, there would be tremendous discoveries which will give you the pain points of your end user. A lot of times, I'll tell you the beauty of the ignorance. Many a times we feel as product managers, user experience designers, user researchers, or even sales or marketing professionals is that, yeah, my users are doing fine. But you don't decide behalf of them. You are not the one who is opening your wallet to buy your own product. They are the one who is buying your product. Okay, so let them decide whether they are happy with the service or not. So you have to be on the other side of the table to experience them. And I think this is an excellent first step towards that. And then, the last part. So I strongly recommend one very critical element which is involved, that you don't need to have, just your data, whether that's your user interviews or customer support tickets or your analytics or whatever. What you really need is the actionable insights. See, data is one thing, okay, but you have to transform that into actionable insights. And to get that, there are two very critical pieces which are required. One is you have to use very, very comprehensive, you can say qualitative and like techniques like quality usability testing, you can say these methods. And the other aspect is the quantitative methods, which will give more quantifiable data. So then you have to basically understand that the qualitative thing will give you the details on how and why a certain thing is happening. And on the other hand, the quantitative techniques will give you who, what, where, and how many. So you have to marry these with a triangulation method called as, it's a triangulation method. That's the right way, way to refer it, which has got, three corners. One is analytics data, okay, which gives you insights on things like page views, where the exits are, high, where bounce rate is low, or how much time is being spent by the user on a certain page, or what is the search frequency and what exactly they are searching. On the other hand, you also need to have usability testing kind of techniques where they will give you insights on areas like where your user is struggling to find the information, where the presented information was intuitive for them. So these kind of discoveries will happen. And other areas like surveys will give you, did the user interface meet the user expectations? How would you rate your experience, and in general? So you'll be surprised to know a lot of times even surveys do wonders, because then user is not facing someone, okay, they are not getting kind of biased or pressured, so they frankly express themselves with the opinion. They don't hesitate to give you a 1 star on a scale of 5, or they don't hesitate to mention their problems. So surveys are also very powerful at times. Usability testing, where people are really speaking to them face to face, showing them the interface or observing them, that how they are really using the product. They also provide a lot of great insights. And same thing, you get on the analytics side with the more factual data. But always remember, it is like not maybe 2 things will give you the full picture. You need 3 things to triangulate, and then only you can probably understand the UX problem. So this is very important. So what you fundamentally need to do, if you are, let's say, investing into the user experience, and if your executive asks that, okay, if I'm going to, let's say, spend another 100K or 200K for your so-called UX overhaul, how you are going to, give me the returns? What is the ROI? So it's very relatively easy. What you should do, you basically pick up the key product metrics like error rate or throughput or success rate, set an improvement goal. I'm not sure whether you will be able to set that rightly in the first go, but there is no harm to, take a decent estimation and just put a good number of improvement. And then, you can tie it to the business KPI. For example, if you reduce the error rate, okay, even by 20 per day, you'll basically are going to save certain support cost. Or same goes with throughput. If the throughput is improved, let's say by 30%, you're going to increase the profit. Or let's say the success rate is going to improve, that's going to overall improve the product usability. Or same goes with completion rate, improving the conversion rate, and so on and so forth. Or cart abandonment rate is reduced, then it's going to increase your revenue maybe by a certain percentage. And what you can then ultimately do is convert all these things into the actual absolute dollars. For example, reduce customer support calls. So cost per call is let's say maybe 20 rupees, you're going to say maybe a certain, maybe 30 lakhs or maybe such a specific number over a year, which is going to then justify the investment into the user experience overall. So always remember, when you go to the executives, they don't understand user experience, they don't understand product. What they understand is only two things on the planet. One is dollars and the other is the timeline. So if they are writing a check, they will ask you, what is I'm going to get in return? And that's exactly, it matters to them. And the other thing, what always executive would say, if you ask them, when do you want certain thing, they will say yesterday. Okay, so be ready for such things. And unless you have a solid plan which is backed up by such these dollar numbers, nobody is going to buy your business case. Okay, so that's the reality of the day. And here's the last slide. So if you don't have the right weapons, you can't win a war. Okay, so in this case also, you have to really understand what you're really doing. And by the way, this is available in public domain, so you can go to synergism.com/UX. This, you will get it as part of our UX process. But in short, what you'll realize is there are a set of designers, there are a set of product managers who are basically work with the stakeholder or end user. So what they typically do, they basically interact or collaborate through tools like Teams or Slack, where the artifacts like mind map or personas, user journey map, and other things, they are captured in Miro. Miro offers templates for all of this. You can also in real time collaborate with the stakeholders, including audio and video. Obviously, requirements are captured in Jira by the product managers, and product managers and designers closely collaborate with this fundamental block. Okay, so everything what you are seeing here, okay, this is the very initial or basic foundation thing. And the next thing what you do is you basically quickly prototype, and you use XD, Figma, Sketch, whatever. Obviously, there are corresponding version control and cloud to take the backup of your design. But then ultimately with these prototypes, you basically expose those prototypes as interactive prototypes, or those set of wireframes as interactive prototypes with your end users for their quick feedback, whether that's on device or through browser. But then using InVision or Zeppelin, you can expose them, you can get a feedback. And once you get the feedback on the wireframes, I think that dramatically saves your rework in the engineering side, because a lot of these then feedbacks, they rapidly evolve your design or the wireframes so that there is no rework which is required at a later stage. Okay, so once you basically are done with your design, once you get the approval, what you do, you export the design specifications. The UI person picks up the right library or technology like Swift, Kotlin, React, or Angular. They basically have the source code repository for implementing it, just like the design repositories are there. They use the DevOps tools techniques and basically deploy it on the cloud. And while they deploy, they also ensure that the right feedback mechanism is incorporated, whether that's user testing tools like Maze or Meet or Zoom is used for gathering the design feedback after the implementation happens. We can run A/B tests with tools like Optimizely. We can do user behavior analysis with SmartLook or Hotjar, so that their clicks, taps, and scrolls are captured to provide a lot of great insights, how user make choices through A/B testing. That also we can experiment. And obviously the analytics, including GA, Mixpanel, or likes of that. So the ultimate objective is that the product usage insights, as you can see here, they are fed back to the designers and product managers, so that the product managers get to know how my users are behaving and using the product, and the designers are getting the insights how my design is getting accepted or rejected by the end users. So that is the beauty, which is very critical. So unless you have right tools, you can't basically make these things happen. So with that, I'll stop. I know we are right on time, about 45 minutes or 46 minutes now. So back to Vijay or Sahil for any questions. Glad to answer all of them. Thank you so much. Back to you.
So to all the attendees, I'll request either you could raise hands so that we can unmute you, or you could type in your question under the Q&A section. Vishanshu Soni, do you have a question? So can we unmute Vishanshu Soni?
Oh, sure. How can I unmute?
Sir, I'm requesting the host.
Oh, sure.
So can we unmute Vishanshu Soni?
Vishanshu, you can unmute yourself and
Sir, I have unmuted. I have unmuted.
Okay,
I have unmuted Vishal Soni.
But it appears like he has not been unmuted.
Vishanshu, can you please unmute yourself? We have given you the permission to unmute. Could you please unmute yourself?
Looks like he is raised by mistake. That's why. No
In
worries.
in the meantime, Amitji, can I ask a question on behalf of the students?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Right. First of all, highly informative session, and the way you have explained the customer requirement, customer needs, customer journey, and importance of everything. I think that was wonderful for each one of the participant to understand the UI UX designing experience. The question I want to ask on behalf of the student from the perspective of skill set,
Sure.
right? So suppose if any of my student is looking forward, because I keep interacting with many school students, and we have been talking about the emerging career option, and I believe the UX UI designing is one of the very prominent area
Mhm.
of career opportunity for the students, right?
That's,
So
yes.
what kind of skill set is required for the student, and what kind of the training or program they can look forward in order to develop this skill set for this particular career?
Okay. So short answer to that, there are primarily three levels in which they can do career in UX. First is they can make their career into UX research, which ideally doesn't really need any visual design skills as such. Okay. So one area of the skills is the UX research. I'll soon cover how to like get skilled into that. The second area for expertise is on the visual design side, where the actual tools are coming in and they can essentially work on that part. And the third portion where they can build careers is the UI development. So if I, let's say, go back to the same slide, you will realize that in order to get a good designing skills, you need to have at least a good mastery on one of these three tools, either Sketch, Figma, or XD. And these core skills skills competencies required when it really comes to the visual design. When it really comes to the research part, I think that's where the areas like this mind map, personas, user journey map, task flows, and few other things, I think they come in, which rarely need any kind of visual design skills. They fundamentally need great insights to really understand about your product, your persona, really understanding the pain point, how the whole thing really works. So I'll give you some solid examples. If someone is into a business analyst role, I think that person can quickly evolve into a UX researcher, where maybe just quick introduction to tools like Miro, going through the videos of Miro, he or she can quickly expand his or her skills into the UX researcher role. Anyone who would like to enter into the visual design, they can probably get a course into any of these you can say nearby so-called coaching classes for learning Sketch, Figma, or Adobe XD. There are lots of online courses or tutorials also which they can essentially go for. And the third part, which is the UI development. So if you are a web developer, you can probably need Angular or React and basically get equipped yourself for a UI development skill. And if you are a mobile developer, then learn Swift or Kotlin to get yourself into the UI development skills, which will be done for the mobile interface. And that's where I think the three primary possible skill sets or roles they come in: UX researcher, visual designer, and a UI developer. So I hope that answered the question.
Right, great. So, at Amity University, Gurugram, if I talk about the academic, we have a lot of academic flexibility given to the student.
Okay.
Where a student of one program, he has an option to choose elective from the other domain. So, for example, a student of fine art can take subject and elective from animation. And similarly, a student of animation can choose elective from fine arts. And so is the case with a student who is doing BTech IT or BTech Computer Science and Engineering, right? So now the next question is related to this also. Suppose a student wants to become a UX UI designer, and while the student, apart from adding all this program or all this tool which a student is expected to learn, So student want to, you know, plan his degree in a way so that that add a value to this subsequently when, you know, he is going into the market. So what do you suggest the combination? Suppose a student of animation choose a subject from fine arts, or a fine arts student choose a subject from animation or from BTech. So what kind of subject combination would be appropriate for a student to choose in terms of a student is looking forward a career in this field?
Yeah, so this is a good combination where maybe animation and fine arts goes hand in hand. But I'll be very frank. Okay, see, in general, the experience building is a very vast field. For example, you can even do a super specialization into game design, which I have not mentioned at all. Okay, the reason for that is, uh, if you really would like to go for animations these days, what's happening is the tools like Adobe XD or Figma or even Sketch, they are offering you ability to actually implement animation out of box. I mean, I'm talking about micro interactions and basic animations, not, you know, really the game level animation. So what earlier used to happen, the UI developer used to do or handle these things using JavaScript or CSS or different JIPs. And today what is happening is these tools themselves, they are offering you plugins, or sometimes inherently they are offering ability. So you design the animation and you simply export it and you basically get the relevant implementation. Okay, so that way the job is actually becoming much more easier. So those who are into animations, obviously there is a science behind animation, there is a science behind micro interactions. But as I said, that most of these things these days, they are getting clubbed into the areas for these tools which are out of box. But if you're really talking about a very comprehensive experience on the areas like game design, there are very specialized, you can say, platforms like Unity or Unreal, where you can build expertise into those platforms. You need a lot of great sketching. So there are again two roles in gaming. One is the actual game designer, okay, who really works on the theme, the storyline, the storyboarding, and the other one who really actually implements it. So the one who really codes those implementations, which are actual interactions, is someone different. And the one who designs, I think that person is different. So I probably would say that if someone is really coming from a arts background or animation background or a similar spectrum, I think these areas of Adobe XD, Figma or Sketch, I think that is good enough for them, unless, you know, you are really going to evolve yourself into the gaming. So I hope
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
welcome.
Prashant, you can unmute yourself and share your queries.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So first of all, thank you very much for explaining everything in such great depth. And I was really, impressed with the way you explained B2B and B2C journey, product journey. In that, I had a question about the market research that you have mentioned also over here. That it's easy to do a market research in B2C model where you have, hundreds and lakhs of customers. You
Correct.
can go and do a survey. But with the market research for a company, which, let's say, your initial target market as a startup is very small, and you want to do a survey, that is very difficult to do. And what exactly the customer is looking for, and they won't actually tell you directly, even if you ask the CXOs
Correct.
or the VPs.
Yes.
So I was just curious about the word, the corporate espionage that you used over here. That the journey that you showed in the second last slide, it also showed that the requirement goes through the feedback loop, and their loop is goes to the product manager, and before that also it goes everywhere. So how does this corporate espionage, and I mean, I have no idea about this, and so just wanted to know your views on this, how to do that survey, and how can we get that information that we require about the clients, what do they want?
Okay. So I'll tell you, to be very frank, corporate espionage is a reality, but I think that is really applicable for multi-billion-dollar corporates, not, even multi-million-dollar corporates. So let's talk about reality, what you and I can do, or what we generally are, we basically, how we solve the problem. So if you are a B2B startup, the simple and straightforward way is, if you interview and if your target audience is not able to tell you what they are looking for, the simplistic way to do that is do the user journey mapping of their users. of your competitors or your suspected or you can say projected target market, and really understand that where exactly the points for pain are. Okay, so you will get to have excellent discovery, especially below this line, wherever there are pain points. So you don't try to go to the market for selling vitamins. You go with a painkiller, and then people will basically buy it. So in short, for even B2B, the discovery should be at the customer journey map level. You can do ethnographic study if you're really going into the real world, you can say goods merchandising kind of or retail kind of setups, where you can really understand the pain point, and then you like position your solution accordingly. So my short answer to that is the answers are in ethnographic study, the answers are in customer journey map, if you're not getting enough insights from the user interviews. And once you get the basic information, so once you get the basic information from the customer journey map and the ethnographic study, what you should do? You should do a competitive analysis where you understand that what are the closest possible competitors, how they are solving the problem, or within their solution, what are the limitations, so that you can map the USPs you are offered by, which is offered by your product, and so that you can get into the shoes of your buyer persona and understand that is my solution compelling enough, or it is all solving those pain points which are worth to sign a check. So I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah.
Ankit, you can unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, Mr. Amit. How are you?
Doing great.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Amit, my question is, regarding the B2B platform. All right. Basically, it's regarding the technology. Okay. I need some. All right. So, we have built a marketplace. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's a kind of a marketplace having its inner marketplace itself. So it's, every individual would be having their own marketplace. All right.
Mhm.
Basically, it's a stock liquidation marketplace. Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a one big marketplace. All right. And
Okay.
inside that marketplace, there would be a different marketplaces. All right.
Okay.
My question is, what technology do you see, fit in the best in for this project?
So how you foresee your end user, it depends on that. For example, your persona is going to be mostly mobile stuck. Obviously, you go for mobile interface, and in that case, I would recommend that you can basically start with a cross-platform technology like React Native, which will serve you the purpose for writing once, and the same code will run on iOS and Android with minimum investment. So that would be my recommendation. Plus, in the future, you can scale it to the web, because the code is written in React Native. You can basically use React to use the same or more or less the same infrastructure of the code to offer it a web interface in the future.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. Sahil, you can just take some queries from Q&A.
Yes, sir. So before taking the next question, I would also like to add a small point. Apart from React Native, you could also use Flutter. So Flutter is currently on iOS and Android, and
Correct.
now they're also coming up with a web, web. So with one code, you can have a website and both the native apps.
Absolutely, that is correct. The only reason I didn't mention Flutter is because Flutter is relatively new and unproven.
Yes,
so
sir.
all the investment what this gentleman would be making, there would be ample resources available at a relatively dirt cheap price in the market with the React skills. Flutter comes with that high premium for paying those specialized developers, which probably would be a little tough for this startup. That's it.
So we have a question from Samyak Anand.
Sure.
How do we know precisely what the user and customer demands? Because we can't figure it out specifically, and every user has a different UX journey.
Correct. So that's where you have to triangulate. So the first thing what I earlier mentioned is you start with the user journey map. You focus on the areas where the high level pain points are there, and then what you should do is you basically focus on these different techniques for triangulating the exact problem. So for example, if you run the A/B test, you will get to know that why bees are getting more hits or getting utilization if you really run it for a decent amount of time, maybe for 30 days or so. But I think that is not adequately enough. What is equally important is you have to analyze all your analytics reports and figure out who is really doing what, where it is, I mean, we are having that traffic with the same thing at the, I mean, in the parallel, what you also need to invest in is you have to conduct user interviews. You have to really understand that the contextual inquiries, when you speak to the user, they probably give you more insights that, okay, why a certain user is doing a certain thing. Okay, so it's more about discovery at this stage. It doesn't stop there. You can use tools like Hotjar or SmartLook to really analyze the heat maps, that okay, how the user is really behaving, how fundamentally your users are scrolling, they are tapping, they are spending more time, so on and so forth. You can also really understand that okay, your product is facing such and such conversion rates or usage. On the other hand, the competition is having maybe a different thing. So you yourself can play a little bit with the competition and understand that if there is a specific gap which you observe, that then you need to really work on that. Same goes with the customer support. If you don't listen to your customers, you're never going to listen or understand the problems what your customers are facing. So I would request that the right way to expose the root cause or the problems is, if you don't have analytics, start using one, whether that's Mixpanel, Google Analytics, doesn't matter, but obviously start integrating analytics hooks. Second thing, obviously speak to your customers, run surveys, conduct user interviews, integrate tools like Hotjar or SmartLook or similar ones to get insights how users are behaving. And most important, have actual contextual inquiries by recruiting few of your real world users, in real time, observe them, that how use a certain functionality or feature of your product, what they are complaining, why they are complaining. And most important, ask yourself one very, very core question. Before you start, try to identify a UX problem. Are you really trying to solve a real pain problem of the end user? Okay. And make your entire journey as efficient as possible. Just the way I gave the example, the moment you launch the Uber app, it gives you your live location and the cars around you. Okay, that is the exact and classic example of solving a pain point. If you are doing that, people are going to love it. So same goes with all the areas which you are trying to solve a pain point or a business problem. If you are closer to the problem with a solution, people are going to use it. Even though you have a bad user experience, they will still use it. I hope that answered.
Sir, so we have our next question from Shashi Chavla. Okay. How to find and how to synchronize across frequencies like market demand, technology evolution, design trends, organization priority, and team skills?
Sure. So as I earlier mentioned, the frequencies thing, it is not easy. You have to first start with the organization. See, for example, there might be something really hot in the market. There is, which is trending. There is something which is a cutting edge thing which has came on the technology side. But if your organization is not really aligned, then there is no point. So I have two suggestions here. If it is the organization is yours, then you realign your organization priorities as per your business and not the market or technology. See, I'll tell you, cutting edge technology in the market, cutting edge technology, which is, trending or ongoing market trend, is not going to give you dollars to run the organization and feed your employees. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're an employee, ask yourself, are you working for a product company or a services company? Okay. In services, you have to dance on the tunes of your client. But if you go to the product, at least you have the liberty that you can make the change, which you can take it back to your customer. Now, the challenge is that before you discuss or decide on the design trends or the team skills, you have to ensure that if your organization itself is not realigned on the market or the technology part, first try to have a buy-in from your leaders that yes, we have to invest into PWA or UI components or design libraries, or we have to pick up a DX story for us. So try to sell in that. And if you select that, I had already mentioned one slide where the executives will ask you, okay, if I give you, let's say $100,000, what kind of ROI I can expect? So try to sell them that story and get a blessing. And then, you can then identify, okay, what is the right mapping for the design trend, which we can use, or the team skills, which we basically need to essentially execute it. But last thing, it's not, every time that you need money to implement or adopt design trends. A lot of times you can make a POC for your existing interface, go to your executives, get a blessing, tell them this looks relatively better. The analytics shows the same thing. And let's go ahead and, motivate your team that, okay, we can use a certain new technique, maybe a new tool, and basically graduate yourself. And always the continuous learning should be always there. For example, nothing is happening, just imagine, okay, and your team is really good and they are really superstar into the Sketch as the design tool, but then they are saying, yeah, what, Photoshop is dead and I'm good on Sketch, so I'm happy now, so I'm somewhere here at the peak. So that doesn't work. Challenge them with the fact, okay, what about Adobe XD, which is evolving and likely to take maybe the similar position for like Sketch? Are you ready for that? So if you not instill the challenge in them, ask them to really accelerate on that. Same goes with other tools like Figma and so on and so forth. So these changes on the technology, tools and research side, they will always go on. Okay, if you don't have any bandwidth, create bandwidth for conducting actual user interviews. Get out of the building, really do that. You can really conduct competitive analysis. You can really understand market research, make them read reports, ask them to experiment with few things. So all these things, they will always go on. Maybe you can design your design library and so on and so forth. So the same thing, at team level, skills level, design trends level, you can, do at a fairly low cost where no dollars are required, but you can still, increase the overall engagement of the team and, embrace and keep align yourself with the market trends. So I hope that answered the question.
Sir, so one final question for today, a question which is relevant to somebody who is into this, profession, somebody who's aspiring in to, be a UI UX designer or become a part of the UI UX journey. How does one keep up with the UI design trends?
So there are lots of good websites which which are out there. My best recommendation would be that you go to medium.com, which is the website which actually is a super syndication of different news sources. And over there, you subscribe to the tags for UX, design, research, and market, and you'll automatically get those articles which will be feeding you for all these areas. So medium.com is the website. Very easy. You can follow over there. And I think that's the best and simplest way to do it.
Sir, that's all the questions we had for today. I would like to hand over to Dr. Vikas Madhukar, sir, to conclude the session.
Sure.
Thank you, Sahil.
Most welcome. I really appreciate the support from your side. Nice talking.
It was as I mentioned earlier, it was a wonderful, very, very informative session. And I think in a very short time of about 50 minutes or so, you have given a very comprehensive view of all important aspects of user experience and user designing. And you've also talked about the problems which are encountered. And by giving the good example of Uber and others, I think, it was a very good explanation. And even the students, those were not earlier aware about this particular concept, that how important it is in terms of, the success of product and, retaining your customer. So it was a wonderful session. So before I close this session, I invite my colleague, Mr. Vijay Veer Singh, who is Vice President at Amity Innovation Incubator and a great support to us at Gurgaon. Over to you, Mr. Vijay.
Thank you, Dr. Madhukar. It has been a wonderful session throughout today. I think not only the budding entrepreneurs, even the startup which were a part of this session had gained a lot of insights about the product design agility. And in fact, down the line, whatever queries all the startup have, please share us across. We will certainly not leave Amit sir like this. We'll keep on engaging with him, and whatever support you require from him with respect to product design, please share us. Amit sir, it has been a really great show today, and I think with your knowledge and skills that you have in terms of product management and product design side of it, our startup community would have learned a lot today. Thank you so much for your availability for today, accepting my invitation, and I think we'll keep on engaging with you down the line on some other topics, as well as key areas which a startup community will require support. Thank you once again, and on the behalf of Amity Innovation Incubator, really appreciate your time for today. Thank you so much.
Before we close the session, may I request to Mr. Amit ji to kindly stop sharing the screen. Sure. And request all of the panelists to open your camera for a group photograph.
For sure.
And everyone can take a screenshot. Yeah, Dr. Ranjana. Right. So I'm just clicking a screenshot.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Abhijit.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.